Alright guys, this is the third member that we just pulled out of the hardtop. You can see it's an open carrier. It's got the spider gears on it. And this is probably the most accurate time to get your gear count when the third member's out of the car. We know that the hardtop was an original 265 Power Glide car when it came from the factory, when it came from Van Nuys. And Power Glide cars typically had 355s. So basically what I did was to confirm that, went ahead and counted the ring gear, counted the teeth. You can basically find a landmark on there. Here's one right here where, let's see, right there where we got a little piece of white on there. So you can start there or off of a marking on the gear, this gear marking. Start from there and count, and then get in there. And it's a little difficult to get in there, but sometimes you can grab some rear axle grease or some of the assembly lube, and then mark one of the teeth in there, and then go ahead and spin that and count the teeth on the pinion. So this one we came up with 39 on the ring gear and 11 teeth on the pinion. And if you divide that up, it comes out to a 354,545, which is the 355. So this is just a standard open 355 rear end. We actually had this in the car temporarily because we had issues with the 411 Posi that we built for the car. And if you look at the car, it's not a Posi carrier. It doesn't have an X or a P. I guess the early ones, earlier 55, 64s, I believe it was 57, had the X, and then later on they went to a P, which denoted Posi traction. This one was actually an open carrier that was converted, that they had to do some modifications to. There's basically a gusset that's back inside there, right near that hole, that has to be ground off or ground away. I wished I had the open carrier to show you that gusset, but the problem with this open carrier is somebody ground out the gusset in this one too. I don't know why. Maybe it had a Posi in it at one time, I'm not sure, but this one's a 411, and I went ahead and counted this one, and we came up with 37 on the ring gear, 9 on the pinion, which came out to 4.111. And so we know this one to be a 411 Posi. Now with anything 370 or higher on the gears, you know that the Posi is going to be a 4 Series carrier. If it's a 3 Series carrier, you would be able to tell because it would have a spacer that's right in between the actual Posi carrier itself and the ring gear. This is a thin gear. There's thick gears out there, or you can run the spacer, but this is a 4 Series carrier. And we had it out of the car because it had some issues when we first put it in the car. There's a series of shims that are inside of it. There's some thin shims and some thick shims, as well as a concave shim that's inside the clutch pack. And when this thing was put together, the series or the shims were put out of sequence. So it caused the car to skip, and it had issues going around the corner where the Posi wasn't unlocking going around the corner, and it was causing it to skip and bind. So while we're doing the brakes and the axle seals, figured this would be a good time to get the Posi looked at, take it apart, get it corrected, and then put it back in the car. All right, let's get it back in the car. All right, so it's underneath the hardtop, and again, we got the third member out. There wasn't a lot of mileage on the 411, so when that thing was assembled and it had the lash set and it had the assembly grease and whatnot, a lot of that grease gets at the bottom of the carrier. And I don't know if you could tell on this one, but this one doesn't have the drain plug. That's on the 57s. The 55, 56 doesn't have the drain plug. It'd be nice to have one on the 55, 56, but there are some perks to the 55, 56 housing with bearing differences on the axle bearings and whatnot. It just doesn't have the drain plug. But anyway, we're gonna probably get in here with some of these rags. There's a lot of assembly grease that ends up at the bottom of these things. It's good time to get in there and clean them out. Get all that stuff out of there. Just soak up all the lithium or the whatever grease was used for checking the lash on the carrier. Almost like a grease. It's thicker than the 90 weight. All right. Now we got all the big stuff up. Trying to hold the camera and do this with one hand. The gaskets were a little bit difficult to clean off on this too, because the banjo housing was powder coated, and it looks great. It holds up great. It's real nice, but unfortunately the Felpro gaskets like to stick to it, to the powder painting. So it's not you just do the best you can with cleaning up the gasket. All right, all the surfaces are clean. And one more thing about the, didn't really go over it too much, but when you're converting an open carrier to a Posi, and you go from an open rear end to a Posi unit, and you want to use the same axles, the axles need to be ground about 1/8 of an inch. And if you look real close on the axles, on the regular stock axles, you'll see a bevel on the end of the splines. And good rule of thumb for that, when you are going to convert over to a Posi, the Posi units are a little bit wider, so the axles need to be shortened that 1/8 of an inch on each axle. If you even just take it to a bench grinder and the side of the grinding wheel, just make it go flat and get rid of that beveled edge that's right there on the teeth, and just make it flat. That's more than enough to give you the space that's needed when you convert over to that Posi unit. So, all right, we'll get this thing under here and get it up into place. All right, here's the 10-bolt gasket. It's got the indents on it for top or bottom, it doesn't matter. Go ahead and slide this on past the threads. We'll be ready to put the 411 up in here. We'll see if I can remember how heavy they were.
You two got there.
Yeah. Alrighty. So, got all the parts all cleaned up. Got my tools all ready. Just used basic brake cleaner, and I'm going to put the new axles in, or put the new axle seals in. These are Felpro 5188s. This is the standard axle flange gasket for the 55, the Tri-5 Chevys. It says 55 to 90, but I'm not sure what other applications that they would go on, but the 5188's always been the axle flange that I've used for the Tri-5. So let's get this going. And then also, we weren't real impressed with the brake shoes that were out on the market. Basically, all the brake shoes for the Tri-5s that we were finding everywhere that we went, they were all made in a Chinese plant. And just was not impressed with, nor would I ever really consider putting those kind of parts on a $50,000 Tri-5 Chevy and counting on that to stop the car. So we have a brake lining place that does brake shoe and clutch relining. So we went ahead and took everything over there, and they did a nice job. The one thing that's a little bit different is typically the front shoe is a bigger, or typically the front shoe has less meat on it. These were all about equal. So this is kind of what I'm rolling with. They're beveled at each end, and you know, I guess if they hang up, then we'll know what happened. But I don't think it's going to be an issue. These guys have been doing brake shoes since the 30s, and 3 or 4 generations working there, and I don't think we've never had a problem with them, so I'm not real worried about it. But yeah, so let's go ahead and get it put back together. Alright, so we got the bearings started inside the axle tube. Here's the 4 bolts that stick through. We got the nuts that go with them, the fine thread, and that will pretty much draw in the bearing into the remainder of the axle tube. Put a 9/16 wrench on this, start cinching them down, and that'll draw the bearing in. going to start. Third pedal's pretty tight. Well, the battery's real good. Right. 50 pounds at idle. Put the tachometer back. Gotta put the tachometer back on. All right. I'm gonna go around to the other side. Screwdriver. There we go. All right, the hardtop lives.